Hello, everybody. It's good to be with you. It's been a little while. Video guy just hadn't been in the house. So I've not been able to cut a video in a couple of weeks or whatever, which I just hate because I just like to have something out there for you to find, something newish for you to find every time you go to YouTube. And I was putting out a couple of weeks, and the video guy was just not letting me sleep. He was here so much. And then, it went the other way. Who knows? The ebb and flow of all relativity, including cutting videos. But the important thing is I'm here now. Video guy is here now. He is in force. I can feel that. And I think we're going to have a very good conversation today. And what I want to talk to you about is that I want to talk to you about surrender. Now, most of us say we want to surrender to God. I'm trying to surrender to God. How do I surrender to God? I have surrendered to God, but that's just very rarely true. But there are people that claim it, and they come to me, and it takes me about 2 minutes to see through that shit, and I will typically call them on it, and then they go away. I never see them again. Which is actually fine. It's fine. Because I can't help them. If you, I can't help you get something that you think you've already got. I can't help you get to someplace that you think you already are. The truth is, there's no place, because this is it. But metaphorically, I speak of that. So the worst thing you can do, really and truly, listen to me. The worst thing you can do is to believe that you are awake when you're not. And you'll know. There'll be a funny feeling about it. I know, because I had the funny feeling about it. And I had the feeling I was awake a long time before I was. And I was waking up, but I didn't realize that I was going to have such a very long prelude to awakening. But that's just the way it worked here. It doesn't work that way for everybody, but it can, and it can work anyway, and it does work in every way. So when we talk about surrender to God, the way that we put it is, because I'll ask people, so have you thought about surrender, right? Because, Ramana Maharshi had only two lessons for you. He would try to get you to do inquiry first. If you do non-dual inquiry, he would rest at peace, and you go do that, and you'll get where you're wanting to go. He knew you would. Actually, that's my, quote, personal experience here, is that I went at it with passion, and I know that there's no I here. No non-dual police, please. No cards, no letters. I do know what I'm talking about, and I do know who I really am, and I'm not going to talk in lofty spiritual terms and third person, except for when I do, because sometimes it just comes out third person, and it does when I'm talking to Betsy, or even with people outside of this, but I try to avoid that. But they'll say, "How you doing?" I'll say, "It's fine, thanks." Referring to this, of course. But I try not to give myself away that much. But at any rate, the possibility of utter surrender, of surrendering yourself to God, would be possible if there was a self over there. But you may have noticed how difficult it is to surrender to God. And the reason is you don't know how to do that. I didn't know how to do that. Nobody knows how to do that, because we're not born doing that. And we're not trained to do that. We're trained in just exactly the opposite direction. We're trained to differentiate ourselves from the pack. But we are members of the pack. We want to be in the pack. We just want to be the leaders of the pack. and we may want to lead from behind, but we still want to lead. We still want to be the important ones. And the thing is, we might be the important ones, but there's no one here. So it's a very dubious achievement. Yeah. The Esquire magazines annually has its dubious achievement awards. I think it's Esquire, might be somebody else. You never know. This mind will say what it says, and it will have no bearing to reality whatsoever. It just coughs up stuff, and it coughs up these thoughts, which become beliefs, and it coughs up a thought, which is, this is wrong, and that's automatically believed because it's my thought, and therefore it's important. So that is wrong, and the moment that that's wrong, I'm in duality. And I'm not in duality. I'm in non-duality always. But my experience is that there will be an I and there will be a relativity. There will be an I or a me and an other. Yeah, there's me and other. And that's the initial differentiation that takes place with an infant. Yeah, is that as it turns into a toddler, there comes the moment when it's just recognized, or it's actually made up. It's just believed, but it's been pounded, so it believes that that there's a me over here and I'm it. But that's not true. There isn't a me over here. There's not a me or there, or me or a you. There's not a here or there. So when I say right here, right now, what that's a metaphorically speaking, because there's no here. There's nothing solid here. It looks like it, it feels like it, I grant you that. I'm not saying that it's not as that one thing is not as real as everything else. I'm just saying that everything else doesn't have much reality to it either. What do I mean by reality? I mean what stands, what does not change, what does not move. And all of this moves. Yeah, it's the great story of relativity, isn't it? Just changing. So this arising is always changing, but it's not changing for or to or about or from or anything else. No one. It's not changing for anybody. It's not changing at anybody. It's not changing because of anybody, because there's nobody here. But we think that there is. And when I say we, who we're talking about, I'm talking about this collective confusion. And it's just patterns. All of this is patterns. There's just patterns. And patterns are patterns, but that doesn't make them a 3D can be weighed objects, right? You can do it relatively, but you can't do it positively. So when I talk about surrender, it's with the full recognition that there's no one here to do it. So I can't be talking about personal surrender, which is what we hear so much about, isn't it? I have personally surrendered to so-and-so, and now I have a personal relationship with God. Well, that's a nice story. It's just not true. You can have, you can be God or not, but you can't possibly have a personal relationship with God because there's nothing personal here. There's nothing personal. There's a good non-dual book out there called Nothing Personal. So what has to surrender? Well, in the absence of someone here, there's no Fred here. So don't think you're talking to a Fred or listening to a Fred or watching a Fred. You're watching a pattern, and what you're hearing are pattern. These are sound waves. And if you don't have an eardrum, you're not even going to be able to get what's being said here. I had a barber that just lost one ear drum, and he just went off into space until everything healed up. I mean, it was really weird. He just withdrew because he couldn't hear himself, so he talked funny and slow, and he couldn't hear you. So really, communication became impossible. So he who hath eardrums, let him hear. So what I'm talking about is that relativity, is that awakeness, you awakeness, because you're not just like I awakeness, you awakeness. There's no Fred that's awakeness, but there is only awakeness. A client of mine wrote me a thing he found in the Catholic Catechism not long ago, and it says, God alone is. And that's what non-duality is saying, is God alone is. Now, we're trying to uncover that without recovering it. But what we typically do recover it is we recover it by having you go seek for that which is already here. So you can't surrender to God in the future. You can't surrender to anything in the future. You can't even drink a Coca-Cola in the future because there is no future and there is no past. There's only right now. It feels like there's a past, I know. And it feels like there's a future, but there's not. Everything is happening. What can I say? At the same time, but it's not at the same time. Everything is just happening. And there's no time. But these units exist within the story of space and time. And it's your story, awakeness. It's actually your dream. And it's not that all of this is your dream. What your chief dream is, awakeness, is that you think you're a Fred. See, you don't really anymore, but you did. And when you did think you were a Fred, then the Fred life was miserable. Why? Because nothing was going my way. Well, awakeness is every damn thing that there is. God alone is. So how can everything go? Everything's why. It's just going the way it's going. Everything's going the way that it's going. But we little units, we identify the patterns here that just somehow they get together and they function somehow in some I forgot the name of the word, but anyway, when two things work together the way a rhino and a tick bird do, and they work together, and there seems to be a me that arises. There seems to be a me that arises. Who's it seem to? The only thing it can seem to is whiteness. There's nothing here else that can understand or misunderstand. There's nothing here that can get anything right or anything wrong. There's just awakeness. God alone is. The problem is that if you want to call it that, it's an issue that we need to take care of, and we can do it right here, right now in this video if you want. Some of you may. See, what has to surrender is awakeness has to surrender to relativity, which is the same thing as giving up or surrendering to God. Because God, in this teaching, is the same thing as consciousness. And maybe you've heard that story, that everything is made of consciousness, but you didn't understand it. Hell, I don't understand it now, but it's true. Everything is made of there's only, within relativity, there's only consciousness. Within truth, there's only the absolute. Within relativity, there's consciousness. So, and consciousness is what? It's the expression of that which is prior to consciousness. So it is awakeness's expression through the unit of all of this, including this unit. And see, but this unit, when it thinks of oneness, it thinks it's over in the corner. This thing's over in the corner, and everything else is oneness. Sadly, I'm not a member. Sadly, I'm not in it. That's just not true. There's no time. So the only, quote, time that you can surrender is right now, because that's all there is. And just give up to trying to understand all this. I know there are people out there with notepads and pens. I know, I understand. I did it. Oh, God, let me write that down before I forget it, says the Fred unit. But he was never talking to the Fred unit. He was talking to awakeness. And That's who I'm talking to right now. Don't think I'm talking to individuals, because I'm not. There are no individuals. I'm talking to myself. And in some pockets, some cells would be a better way to put it. Within some cells, there exists confusion. Why? Why not? In other words, there's no explanation of any of this. You don't need to know why about all this. You just think you do. But why not? That's my answer to why. Why not? And so you think you need to understand, but I notice you don't. Because what I help people to do is to understand less and less about what isn't true. Because people who know a great deal about what's not true. And some of that is vital, and it's important. We need engineers, we need doctors, we need lawyers sometimes. Maybe not so often as we've made out, but we got to have them. I've got a lawyer, right? So we have to accept what is. And our thing is, we want to die to God, meaning give up, surrender. We want to die to God, meaning we want the ego to die. But see, the thing is we want the ego to die, but we don't want to die. And when I say we, I'm not talking about the body. The body has no preferences. Well, I mean, it has its preferences, and it does have its preferences. That's not true. But the body is not on the edge of its chair about what the conditions are, because conditions in relative conditions vary widely. So that apparent individual conditions vary widely. But I can tell you that in the West, most of us are living in ideal situations. We just don't realize it. It's different levels of ideal, different definitions of and translations of ideal. But if you're not hungry and you're not cold, and maybe you've got a companion, that's always great. And you've got shelter, that's a happy unit if you let it be. Because that unit's got everything it needs. What it needs is what is needed to keep the animal alive, so that which operates through the animal, the unit, has a functioning bridge. Yes? We want to surrender to this, but we don't want to surrender to this. We're looking for some exceptional this that I'll have no objections to. And that I think I could surrender to. But there will never come the time and place where this thing is actually content. There can be a lull, but the haunting will come back. This thing is not, it's unsatisfiable. You can't make this thing content. You can give it everything it's asking for, and once it gets it, it will notice it's not enough, or it's not good enough, it's not cool enough, it's not rich enough, it's whatever it is, but it's never going to be enough. If you think that a lot of money would solve your problems, I'm not saying that some money might not alleviate some trouble over there. I've had money alleviate it in my life, and every month when I go to pay the mortgage, I notice that I'm very happy that there's some money there so that the mortgage can be paid, and this unit has shelter for another 30 days. But I am in perfect condition. How do I know? I'm warm, I'm fed, I'm dry, I've got shelter, I've got Betsy and the boys as companions. I'm delighted. There's nothing more that this unit actually needs. Nothing more at all. But we think we do, don't we? But who is it that thinks that we need something more when there's no we there? What's the we that's thinking I need to wake up? What's the we that's thinking I need to die to God? I remember I had one client that got to me, and we started into an awakening session or a clarity session, probably awakening. And she said, "But Fred, you don't understand. I've got to die to God." And I said, "You're already dead. So what are you going to do now?" And I was right. This is dead on its own. The animating presence gives this thing animation. It gives it personality. It gives it it is from that. It can move. It can hear. It can see. All the senses. But what you really are is the sense of being. And there's just a sense of being, and you have a sense of being that you are that which is prior to that yet. So what we do when I want to die to God, I just don't know how, we're putting it off. Because this is God. And you are awakeness. You think you're an individual, but you're not. I'm talking right through that shell. I'm not talking to those shells. I'm talking right through them to myself. And what's looking through every set of eyes on this planet and any other is awakeness. So it's just one thing. When there's just one thing, just notice that you have to be it. There's no arguing with that. You can argue that there's not more than one thing, but try to find more than one thing. And you will say, well, just because I can't find it, it could still exist. Now you're in hypotheticals. I don't deal in hypotheticals. What can we actually prove? Well, we can prove that there's here now just as it is. Can we prove anything else? No, but can we drive ourselves crazy believing that there is? Yes, it's right around the corner. It's going to be here Saturday. I'm going to get clear right after I read this book. I'm going to wake up after I go to this event. I'm going to, or I'll be happy when I get this girl. And then I'll be able to surrender because I'll be so happy. Surrendering will be no problem then until you get the girl. And, she's a nice woman. But you can actually be totally in love, because I am, and not be attached in the wrong sort of way. I need these boys and Betsy to keep this thing going straight down the line until and unless I don't. I think they'll do without me before I do without them. So that's not a problem for me. It may be an issue for them. I don't know. But there's nobody trying to help me fall down the stairs. I'll tell you that. But Betsy has gotten a job, and she's going to be a big breadwinner again. Betsy used to be a big breadwinner. For a long time, she was the breadwinner, or the chief breadwinner. And Fred was just pulling up doing as much as he could. But then it got reversed, and for 10 years. And who knows, it could get reversed again. Whatever. Betsy is going to still be with us. She still cares vitally and mightily about this teaching. She still loves you, but she wants a little autonomy, and she wants a new adventure. And so she's going to have one. I could just encourage her completely, because she'll still be able to do little things for me, like scheduling, which is not a little thing. That's a huge thing. So she'll be able to do that kind of stuff for me, but she won't be doing much in the way of extra stuff beyond that, I don't believe, because she's not going to have time. I can't pay her like she can, although I do pay her with mortgage and all that. The hell are we getting at? I don't know. I get off on these little stories. So let's get back to our topic if we possibly can, which is I need to die to God. I need to surrender to God. Number one, and metaphorically, it may be true, but is it actually true? What are you? Do you know that? See, you want to surrender to God so that you can find that out, but it may be that you have to find that out before you can. Don't be so sure of yourself. That's what's killing you, is sureness. I get with people, and they come to satsang sometimes or whatever, and they'll think that they're awake, and they declare that they're awake, and I can tell that they're not. Right? I mean, you can't fool me over any period of time. You can't fool any awake being. That you'll show your ass in no time at all. It's just the way it is. But if I have somebody like that, that's somebody who is helpless. I mean, I cannot help them because I cannot help them get where they already are, where they think they already are. And that's the worst kind of resistance, is the arrogance that believes that not only are you awake, but you may be a little bit more awake than the Fred unit. But the Fred unit's not awake. There's only awakeness here. You can't get more awakeness than the awakeness here. There can be higher grades of clarity, I am sure, because I do not miss them because I do not know them. I can't even see that they are possible. If I knew, I cannot see what they would be. I know they are possible because a few people that I trust convey that message. But don't think that everybody that's awake that says they are. They just are not. Don't think that all these satsang teachers are awake. They are not. I've heard Ajahn say this, and I kind of bristled at that when I first heard it, because I was one of those satsang teachers. And he would still think that I am. But, and I still am, I still participate in satsang. It's just there's no teacher here. So I'm not teaching, there's just teaching. It's just happening. It's this is the first student, and it never coming out of the student chair. It's not going to the teacher chair. But the moment I go to the teacher chair, I got to know something, and I don't know anything, and I don't want to know anything. When you don't know anything, you'll find that resistance dies. And no resistance, no Fred. And no Fred, no suffering. That's the way it works. This unit has, just in the last few weeks, has had test after test on its body, because it's been in a pretty good bit of pain for 18 months, and it walks funny, and it uses a cane now, and it has some other complaints. And we don't know what it is, but we do know what it is. What it isn't, we now know it's not MS, which is a young person's disease usually, but it can occur in later life. And I thought that it had occurred here. And I had a lot of encouragement from some of the tests and some of the people I talked to. But at any rate, I found out that it doesn't have that. So that's great. But there's a lot of pain here. That's my point, is there has been a lot of pain. And there has been a lot of confusion bait. It just hadn't been taken. Over 3 days in the last week, I got told last week, like last Wednesday or something, that Betsy and I had to come to think that I had MS. And then I had a spinal tap. The first test came back. We found out that I did not. We could read enough to tell that I did not have MS. And the next day, my doctor wrote, and he said, "Damn, your test turned out positively, and you need to get to your neurologist. Is that what it is? Yeah, neurologist right away." And I was like, "Wow!" And he said, you just what he's saying is you've got MS, because it's the final test. And it could tell you that you didn't have it, but it couldn't tell you that you did. But it could tell you that you probably did. And so then the next day or two later, my doctor called me back. He said, "Fred, I've got some news for you." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, I got some good news for you." And I said, "What's that? What's that?" And he said, "You don't have MS after all." He said I read that test completely backwards. And he will still be my doctor, and I will still love him because he was honest. He made a mistake. He called a mistake. Doctors make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, but not many doctors will confess their mistakes to their clients. I guess he considers me a patient, not a client. So, at any rate, he did that, and my hat's off to him. And I don't know what all we talked about here, but somebody mentioned I should mention this in a video about this thing. Skillful Means is going along beautifully. For those of you who thought about it but didn't do it, we've had a lot of people wake up. It's really, I had a ton of emails telling me how good it is, this, that, and the other. So it remains a beacon of freedom. We will not be doing another one this year, I don't think, but we will probably do one in January, and you're invited to do that. And there's going to be something up. I've got something up my sleeve that I'll be introducing to you in the near future. So you stay tuned, and I'm going to be more regular than this if it kills me. Thank you so much. Bye now. I love you.